Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. Back today to talk about the next 5 of the summer books that I read. I do apologise, I've been kind of dragging my feet on this one. I still have 10 books to get through, so 2 more of these videos. I don't know why, I don't have any particular reason for why I've been dragging my feet, but my plan is to do this next 5 now, hopefully film the next 5 over the weekend, and then we can finally get into books that I've read in September. But without much further ado, let's just get straight into these books. Firstly, we have Eyeliner, A Cultural History by Zahra Hankir. This is a really interesting history in which Zahra Hankir is looking at the evolution of eyeliner, going from ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt all the way through to present day. Eyeliner and its practical uses as well as its aesthetic uses, used not just to beautify but also for spiritual purposes, how eyeliner has shaped cultural identities as well as personal, going from figures like Nefertiti all the way through to the fact that there is a whole chapter dedicated to Amy Winehouse. I wanted to read this because this does have some personal resonance to me. If I am wearing makeup, chances are I am wearing eyeliner. In fact, I remember when the marketing manager at my company had her daughter over for work experience, she described me as Charlotte's the one with the eyeliner. That was my identifier, was the fact that I wear eyeliner. And last year when I was having a bunch of eye issues, I basically had conjunctivitis-like symptoms, though it wasn't actually conjunctivitis, it was just really bad hay fever. And it meant for a good 2 months I wasn't able to wear any eye makeup, and it felt really, really weird. You know, I am somebody who is able to go out in public without makeup, but there is something about eye makeup especially that just feels very me, and no longer having like the freedom and flexibility to choose to wear eye makeup just really got me down. I didn't feel like myself. And Zahra Hankir also talks about her personal experiences with eyeliner, how she was especially influenced when she was young by Nefertiti. For me, people who inspired me were people like Audrey Hepburn, of course, Trixie from Call the Midwife, she always has fabulous eyeliner, as well as a bunch of YouTube beauty gurus from the early 2010s I was really inspired by. So I understand in this book when she's talking about how eyeliner can make you feel powerful, beautiful, or even just more like yourself, even if other people think that it's silly and superficial. And it was really interesting to get more of an insight into historic uses of eyeliner, and particularly its relevance to non-Western societies. I think the main issue that I had with the writing in here was that it was rather repetitive, and I did think that this book was overlong. At times it did lack a little bit of focus. I didn't always know why it was that within a particular chapter we were going from one topic to the next. And for me, I just personally always like my histories to have a little bit more cohesion, a bit more narrative flow, rather than just kind of being a bit of them being like this and this and this. And I really didn't think that we needed a full chapter on Amy Winehouse and her biography. I love Amy Winehouse, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the page count could have been better spent on something that is just a bit more general, maybe talking about makeup and eyeliner in the music industry as a whole, just something that had a little bit more breadth. Using Amy Winehouse as a bit of a case study, but we didn't need an entire chapter on her. Like I say, great topic. There were some really interesting tidbits of historical information about eyeliner that I just didn't know before, but I don't necessarily think the execution of this was perfect. Next up, moving on to fiction, we have Medea by Rosie Hewlett, which was a very widely recommended new Greek myth retelling, focusing of course on the character of Medea, who is typically depicted as this vengeful sorceress, the wife of Jason and the Argonauts fame, who ends up betraying her family and running away with him. But then after many years, he is unfaithful to her, and famously, Medea ends up killing both of their children in retaliation. And while that all is very present in this book, as you may imagine, Rosie Hewlett is really trying to sympathise with Medea, show more nuances and complexities to both her and their relationship. She is not a villain, but somebody who has been wronged many times. And I think this was a really great exploration of a figure who has just not been shown much love throughout her young life, and how this impacts on her romantic relationships going forward. You know, the relationship that we see between Medea and Jason is very toxic and codependent. Medea ends up clinging to this man because he is showing her even a shred of sympathy, and what it culminates in is this very mutually destructive relationship where he is taking advantage of her powers and she is slowly but surely being drained of all of her compassion, as increasingly the world is more and more hostile to her. And I really enjoyed this just for that aspect. One criticism I do have of this book is about 2/3 of the way into it we have, I think, a 10-year time skip, and as a result we skip through many years of Jason and Medea's marriage, which has clearly broken down, which means that you reach that time skip and there is a very sharp turn in how they are speaking to each other, how they treat each other. And I personally would have preferred to have seen much more of a gradual turn, I think, because the first 2/3 of this book is quite a slow build. You know where this relationship is ultimately going to go, but because you've had the time and breathing space to see it slowly bubble, the fact that you then get to this next part and it's suddenly there like that, I don't know, just felt a little bit unsatisfying. But I will say that is a minor complaint for a book that I think was very, very well done. I think the main reason to go for this is for these character portraits, for the relationships. If you're in the mood for a book about a difficult woman who is very underappreciated and in the end just gets to go full carry on these people, I'd highly recommend. It's quite cathartic actually. Next book I read was non-fiction, and it was Blood, Fire and Gold, Elizabeth I and Catherine de' Medici, Great Queens, Great Rivals by Estelle Paranque. So very simply, as the title suggests, we are looking at the somewhat intertwined lives of Elizabeth I and Catherine de' Medici, two very prominent, powerful women in 16th century Europe who, yes, did not actually meet in person, but we are looking at their influence on each other, their relationship that obviously played out at a distance, their similarities and their differences in navigating this very turbulent political landscape as women who had a lot of power and responsibility. And you know, in the 16th century there were a lot of women in charge, but we cannot downplay how unusual that was. Elizabeth I having the power as a monarch, Catherine de' Medici having kind of power by proximity, first being the wife to the king, but having a great level of influence, particularly in her influence over her sons who would become king. Honestly, don't have too much to say about this one. I thought it was really interesting. I think it's a great follow-on if you have earlier this year read Young Queens, which was looking at Catherine de' Medici, Mary Queen of Scots, and Elizabeth de Valois. This is a great follow-on from that. I love how Estelle Paranque is able to pull a lot of different insights out of these court documents just from this tilted perspective of looking at the relationship between England and France. As I say, these two figures never actually met each other, but they did have a relationship. Their influence on each other was clearly there, and I very much enjoyed reading about it. The last two books are two in a duology, which I buddy read along with Emily over at Novelle Novels, and so I'll talk about them both together, and it is The Miniaturist and The House of Fortune by Jessie Burton. The Miniaturist is set in 17th century Amsterdam, and we are following the life of Nella Ortman, who is sent off to Amsterdam following her marriage to a man that she has never met, who alongside his sister Marin seem quite cold and distant and always keeping her at arm's length, though he does end up gifting her a miniature house for their wedding. Throughout the book, Nella is learning more about this house, this family, and the secrets within. She initially reaches out to a miniaturist with the view of filling up her miniature house with different items, but then discovers this miniaturist is sending her things that are a little bit too on the nose. Miniature figures of the members of the house that she has not commissioned, but seem to hint that maybe this miniaturist is watching the house and seems to know their secrets. Who is this person? What do they want from her? And how do they know what they know? And even, is there a simple explanation, or could it be something more mysterious and magical? In House of Fortune, the sequel, we are following the story 18 years later, still following Nella, but also following the next generation in her niece Thea. Thea, who is now at 18, being pressured by her family to get married in order to marry advantageously, and having to hide secrets of her own, which could definitely unravel the family. And that's even before it seems like the miniaturist is back up and running again, but this time sending Thea mysterious parcels that seem to hint that this person, whoever they are, knows more about the family than they should. The Miniaturist was a reread for me, but I read this back when it first came out in 2014 and had forgotten a lot of plot details. But it was an enjoyable reread, especially reading it alongside Emily. You've got this very slow moving but still evocative, enjoyable read that is full of mystery, and part of that mystery being like, what is the nature of this miniaturist? Do they have magical or clairvoyant abilities, or is this all taking place in a very logical, rational way? You really feel for Nella and Marin, their restricted movements as women in this society. It's also a book that is not afraid to go very dark. You really feel the tension of living in this society where you are so monitored, where opportunistic people are ready to pounce on you for the smallest indiscretion. The House of Fortune, in contrast, is a bit more of a lighter tone. You've still got all of those themes running through this, particularly as the family is wanting to maintain their financial and social position. But as I say, it is lighter. There is a little less focus on the mystery of the miniaturist and more on secrecy within the family. I think it is more relationships focused in that way. I presume also from this ending that maybe Jessie Burton is wrapping up here. I'm not really sure where she could take this story next. And if this is the closing, then I'm quite satisfied with that. For me, this is a solid 4-star series. Definitely one that I would recommend. Maybe not one that I'm shouting from the rooftops, but I am glad to have gotten back into this, and especially glad to have read it with Emily. So thank you very much, Emily, for reading this alongside me. So there we go. Those are the next 5 of the books that I read in the summer months. Do let me know if you read any of the books I've spoken about today and your thoughts on them. Alternatively, please let me know of any books that you read in July and August that I should check out. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.